You know how sometimes you can look at something a million times and then boom, you suddenly see a secret that was hidden in plain sight all along? Well, it turns out the most amazing details aren't always in the big, flashy statements. Sometimes they're in the really simple stuff, like, say, the first line of a letter. So let's dive right in. So we're actually going to explore that exact question by digging into two ancient letters from the Apostle Paul. Why? Because buried right there in his opening greetings, there's a clue. And this clue points to a surprisingly sophisticated, really well thought out strategy for, well, changing the world. Okay, so check this out. Here are the two letters side by side. On the left, you've got Paul's greeting to the church in Philippi, and on the right to the one in Colossae. And at first glance, they look pretty much the same, right? He calls both groups saints. But what does that actually mean here?
Yeah, so let's get one thing straight. This isn't about, people with halos who've been officially canonized. Not at all. In this context, saints, or orang-orang kudus, it just means the entire community of believers. It's this idea of a people set apart by God. It's kind of like how ancient Israel was called a holy nation. So basically, Paul's writing to everybody in the church.
But wait a second. If you look again, real close, at that letter to the Philippians, there it is. That little, tiny, but absolutely crucial extra phrase. See, he doesn't just say hello to the saints. He gets way more specific.
He explicitly calls out two other groups, the overseers, or Penilik Jamaat, and the deacons, or diakon. Now, here's what's so interesting. These aren't just random casual words. No way. These are actual titles. They refer to specific, recognized leadership roles inside that community. And that tells us something huge. This wasn't just some loose, informal get-together.
So you have to ask yourself, why bother? Why make that distinction? Why would he mention the leaders specifically in this letter? What is this little detail trying to tell us all these thousands of years later? And here it is. This is the big reveal. The fact that he mentions overseers and deacons is solid proof that the early church in Philippi, well, it wasn't just some random spontaneous movement. It was a structured organization. It had real formal leadership in place, a system designed to actually get things done.
And this kind of structure, it wasn't an accident, it wasn't a fluke, and it definitely wasn't just for show. It was a deliberate, totally strategic part of Paul's whole mission. You can literally see a clear plan at work here. So, Paul's method was basically this brilliant three-step process. First, you reach new communities. Then, step 2, you actively train up local leaders, people like Timothy and Epaphras. And finally, step 3, that local leadership would then sustain the church long after Paul had moved on. That organization, that was the secret sauce. It was the key to making the whole mission last.
And get this organizational blueprint, the one we spotted in that simple greeting, it didn't just fade away. Not even close. It had this profound, long-lasting influence. It created a model that people would study and even bring back to life centuries down the road.
And Paul wasn't even the first one to do this. If you rewind a bit, the apostles were already organizing leaders in Jerusalem right from the very beginning. Paul just took that model, continued it, and refined it. Okay, now let's fast forward, way forward, to the 1850s. And what do you find? The early Adventist pioneers are looking directly back to this New Testament structure, seeing it as the perfect model for their own movement.
Listen to how one of those pioneers, James White, put it back in 1853. He basically argued that the blueprint was already right there in the New Testament. It was complete, it was all you needed. For him, it was like, why try to reinvent the wheel? The original design was the absolute best. And it wasn't just him. His contemporary, Ellen G. White, she completely echoed this idea. She didn't see the apostles' work as just some historical, one-time thing. To her, it was a deliberate example, a template, that was meant to be used for organizing churches everywhere for all time. Okay, so let's bring this all together. Think about it. We started with this tiny little detail in a letter that's 2,000 years old, and we followed that thread all the way up to modern history. So what's the big takeaway here? What does it all mean? It really all boils down to this. That simple hello to the overseers and deacons. It pulls back the curtain on a grand strategy. It shows us that from the very beginning, the Christian movement wasn't just built on inspiration. It was built on intentional, deliberate organization. A structure designed for growth and, just as importantly, for endurance. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other ancient blueprints are out there? Maybe in religion or government or even science that are still quietly shaping our world today. Just hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice.